Here we go. Live on YouTube. Mickey, this mic is all yours.
Hi there. I'm so happy to be here. And we are on chapter 2 of Kenneth Wapnick, PhD, The Healing Power of Kindness, Volume 1, Releasing Judgment and the Practice of A Course in Miracles. So we're going to start on chapter 2, Judgment and the Belief in Differences, the Basis of Unkindness. How is judgment relinquished? A favorite activity of many students of A Course in Miracles is self-righteously judging others in the name of the Course itself. Thus, they reason, if someone is sick, it is obviously because of their guilt. We have been praying for them and they still have their symptoms. That obviously means they are guilty. However, when you think about it, how could they possibly know the meaning of the symptoms in the greater atonement path of that person? They have their answer entirely on form, what their eyes see, and have no idea of what is going on in the person's mind. Thus again, they cast judgment in the guise of being a good student. I will read something now from How is Judgment Relinquished, section 10 of the manual, which states in the clearest of terms that such judging is impossible. This is not the only place in A Course in Miracles where Jesus talks about the impossibility of judging, but it is perhaps the most explicit. Jesus's point is that we cannot judge or understand anything. Therefore, whenever we feel we are superior course students and justified in our judgments, always on the basis of external data of where others are on their atonement path, think of these passages. Quote, the aim of our curriculum, unlock the goal of the world's learning, is the recognition that judgment in the usual sense is impossible, end quote. Jesus is not talking only about condemnation, the obvious meaning. He is also using the broader sense of judgment, understanding anything at all, judging where a person is on his or her spiritual path. For example, quote, this is not an opinion but a fact. In order to judge anything rightly, one would have to be fully aware of an inconceivably wide range of things, past, present, and to come. One would have to recognize in advance all the effects of his judgments on everyone and everything involved in them in any way. And one would have to be certain there is no distortion in his perception, so that his judgment would be wholly fair to everyone on whom it rests now and in the future. Who is in a position to do this? Who, except in grandiose fantasies, would claim this for himself? End quote. This is self-explanatory, and so I will continue. It gets a little worse. Quote, remember how many times you thought you knew all the facts you needed for judgment and how wrong you were, end quote. Anyone who has even a slight degree of self-honesty would realize how true this is. Quote, is there anyone who has not had this experience? Would you know how many times you merely thought you were right without ever realizing you were wrong? End quote. Forget about the times it was clear you were wrong. How about all the other times? Quote, why would you choose such an arbitrary basis for decision making? Wisdom is not judgment. It is the relinquishment of judgment. End quote. That describes the course's objective. Its curriculum is all about the giving up of judgment, the obvious prerequisite for hearing God's voice. And this is from the manual. The world trains for reliance on one's judgment as the criterion for maturity and strength. Our curriculum trains for the relinquishment of judgment as a necessary condition of salvation. End quote. Early in the text, Jesus tells us of the rewards of not judging. Quote, "You have no idea of the tremendous release and deep peace that comes from meeting yourself and your brothers totally without judgment." End quote. And I just like to say that this goes in line with what you were just talking about with Cindy. So it's really beautiful. Lynn, thank you. Quote, "Make them but one more judgment. It is this: there is someone with you whose judgment is perfect. He does know all the facts, past, present, and to come. He does know all the effects of his judgment on everyone and everything involved in any way. And he is wholly fair to everyone, for there is no distortion in his perception. Therefore, lay judgment down, not with regret, but with a sigh of gratitude. Now are you free of a burden so great that you could merely stagger and fall down beneath it. And it was all illusion, nothing more. Now can the teacher of God rise up unburdened and walk lightly on." End quote. You should reread these paragraphs whenever you are tempted to judge others, not only in attacking and finding fault with them, but also in presuming to know where they are spiritually or what their physical symptoms mean. Sickness can be thought of as judgment. As I mentioned earlier, the original judgment that says, "I know what is best for me." God does not know. I know, and I am better off being on my own, autonomous, free, and independent of heaven. That is absolute madness. And all judgments we have ever made come from that insane thought. I'd like to repeat that. All judgments we have ever made come from that insane thought. And everything that has followed from that first judgment shares in that insanity. Think about the fact that the actual phenomenon of perception is judgment. And I'd like to repeat that again too. Think about the fact that the actual phenomenon of perception is judgment. Quote from the text: "Perception selects and makes the world you see. It literally picks it out as the mind directs. Perception is a choice and not a fact." End quote. In order to perceive something, we have to perceive it relative to something else. Figure against ground, the ground being the background, and the figure being whatever is focused on. If we do not have that contrast, we cannot perceive. Thus, we select out of our entire perceptual field what we are looking at and listening to, and automatically screen out what is irrelevant to us. Thus, for example, the people in this room who are looking at me and listening to what I am saying are screening out other auditory and visual stimuli. On the other hand, If there is someone in the room who is here, not as a student of A Course in Miracles, but as an interior decorator, for example, that person would be perceiving the color of the walls, the shape of the room, and the general ambience. What I am saying and reading would be in the background. We all must perceive something here, otherwise we cannot function as bodies. And therefore, we are always separating what is important from what is not important, and that is judgment. We can say then that our entire physical universe is based on separation and judgment, all stemming from the original judgment we made as one sun that individually was preferable to heaven's oneness. Obviously, we made the wrong judgment and wrong choice, and consequently, everything that has ever followed from that has been equally wrong. Quote, make them but one more judgment, end quote. The only judgment we should make is that we made a mistake and that there is someone within who can help. What the Holy Spirit will tell me about my sick friend has nothing to do with my sick friend. He will talk to me about me. So I can realize that if I am concerned and am making judgments, it is because I am not paying attention to my innate sickness. Therefore, my teacher, who is also my healer, will call attention to my sickness and help me realize that if I join with him, I will no longer be sick. If I join with him, I will no longer be sick. Since he is beyond judgment, I too will be beyond judgment when I join with him. The peace and love within me would be unaffected by what is happening in my friend's body, because I will now know that my friend and I are joined with the Holy Spirit. At that point, anything I say or do will be loving, because it will have come from the loving, right-minded space in my mind. Before you say or do anything, before you judge or think anything, you should first make sure that you are no longer sick. Again, sickness is judgment and has nothing to do with physical symptoms. It is needful, therefore, that you pay careful attention to when you are judging. Be aware of it, realizing you are allowing someone else's circumstances to have an effect on you, which means, again, that you are now the one who is sick. This is the symptom you should be looking at and judging against, but not out of guilt. This form of judgment says, I made a mistake, and there is someone within me who will look at me differently and therefore will help me look at this person differently. The help is not so much about being able to look at that person differently as much as it is about seeing what you are doing. The Holy Spirit would help you realize that what you are seeing in this other person is what you do not want to see in yourself. If you are anxious, fearful, depressed, or guilty because of someone's illness, problem, or circumstances, there is something unhealed in yourself that you are not aware of, but is now rising to the surface in search of suitable victims of your projections. You need to stop everything you are doing and go within and be healed. The way you are healed, to state it again, is to ask Jesus or the Holy Spirit for help in looking at what is truly making you sick, which can always be reduced to the same thing. You want to be right and you want to be on your own. Jesus talks about gratitude frequently in A Course in Miracles, especially emphasizing that we should be grateful for all situations that make us the most uncomfortable, because without them, we would not know there is something unhealed in us. Thus, if you are upset over what is happening with someone, you understand now through having Jesus instruct you that this person has become the screen onto which you have projected some guilt that you do not want to look at in yourself and thus see in another. From the text, quote, "In the world is the witness to your state of mind, the outside picture of an inward condition," end quote. Perception, from the text, quote, "Perception is the outward picture of a wish, an image that you wanted to be true," end quote. Exposing that wish to have the image of your sinful brother be true is the gift your relationships bring you. That is what Jesus means by saying that your brother is your savior, not because of anything he is doing or saying, but simply because your relationship with him is providing the opportunity of looking at something in yourself you were not looking at before. Question: if I have worked through a lot of judgment with another person and am peaceful, when I go back to my ego, will all of the murderous thoughts return? Answer: yes. The ego is 100% thought system. It does not decrease. It is hatred and murder through and through. And therefore, if you are back in your ego system, you are back into hatred and murder. What changes as you progress in the course, and there is no objective way of measuring this, is the amount of time you spend in your ego, as opposed to the amount of time you spend with the Holy Spirit. When you are in your ego, it is the full-blown ego. Similarly, when you are with Jesus, there is only love, because there is nothing else. All that changes is the amount of time you choose to spend being insane. It might be 23 hours a day, and you get it down to 22 3/4. I am being fictitious, of course. It is not really quantitative, but it is the time we spend with hate or love that changes. Thus, you could have worked through a lot of hatred towards someone so that you now see this person as your companion on the journey, no different from you. Then all of a sudden you become frightened and fall back into the ego and pick a fight. What might be different now is that you are aware that you just became frightened and your current state is different from how you were before. Your attack, therefore, may not be as intense, or the frequency and duration not be as great as what it used to be. However, when you are with your ego, you are in totally. and become hateful, vicious, and mean. What would change is that you will not believe in it quite as strongly as you used to. Something is missing. The oomph is not there because part of you knows it is made up. Question: can all of these techniques or concepts be applied to ourselves when we are sick? Answer: yes, absolutely. In fact, that is an excellent place to practice. A typical reaction when a student of A Course in Miracles becomes sick is to try to analyze the guilt, thereby judging it. Remember the familiar line from chapter 18 where Jesus says, quote, "You are still convinced that your understanding is a powerful contribution to the truth and makes it what it is," end quote. Jesus does not think much of our capacity to understand. The idea is not to try to understand why you are sick or what is going on, other than to know that whatever is going on in your body or in your life is coming from the sickness of believing you are better off on your own. That you should know, because Jesus does teach you that here. Once you understand that your sickness is that you pushed Jesus and his love away, it will be obvious that your healing lies in inviting him back in. It is very simple. Whether you judge yourself or others, it is the same sickness. As I say repeatedly, because Jesus says it repeatedly. That is why this is a simple course. Every problem is the same, regardless of the form. And so every solution is the same, regardless of the form. Therefore, this works for yourself as well as for your perceptions of others. Do you want me to read the chat, Lynn, or go on to healing as the
Sure.
understanding of separation?
I think read the chat, and also if you have any comments, we'd love to hear what you're thinking about these things you're reading.
Well, I'm thinking about Cindy a lot as I was reading it. I think it was really perfect, and it seemed like a lot of the classes on that we've had on this Thankful Thursday today, a lot it has dealt with judgment today, on releasing judgment and sickness. I noticed that was a big, through each class, that was like a theme on each one today. So it's really interesting, and I'm very grateful that Cindy put her hand up. So let me read the chat here. Okay. Karen writes, "Everyone is playing their part perfectly. How can we judge that?" Only equals are at peace. Seeing my brother as the same leaves no room for judgment, only joining. Right. Well, it's your script. So I would say on Karen's, where she said everyone is playing their part perfectly, how can we judge that? It's your script that you wrote. So they are playing their part perfectly. Everything is perfect just the way that it is. And you do, as Karen said, have to see your brother as the same. You have to join. And what Ken's saying in here is to ask Jesus, to join with you, to step back and to look at it. And then Karen says joining equals peace. So does anyone else have something to say about that? No?
I think Rev Wayne had his hand up.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly say something you had read that was interesting to me. That was that sickness is not has nothing to do with the body, but to do with the mind. And it just reminded me of my to bring up my dog who just was diagnosed with cancer, but she has no idea. She has no clue what's going on. And as far as she's concerned, she just says it's tired every once in a while, and she feels some strange sensations. She's limping a little bit. She has no clue, so she's happy 98% of the time. She's her normal happy little self. She runs around. She's just playful, happy as a storm. And every once in a while, you can see her. She's a little confused. And it just goes to show that it's really nothing to do with her body, from her perspective at least. All she knows is that every once in a while she's tired, and then feels more sensation, which she doesn't call pain. She doesn't know, and she doesn't call it anything. It just happens to her, and she just deals with it. And when it's gone, she's playful again. So it's a great example of what Ken was talking about. I think where if you can just see things as happening, as opposed to judging the heck out of them, be a lot less painful, a lot less misery at least, a lot more emotional freedom. That's what I thought of. That's it.
Very good. Anyone else?
I was going to ask if you wanted to share some commentary on your reading.
Well, I just myself on the commentary is, you know, everything is perfect just the way it is. And yesterday I had to step back, and I talked about this yesterday and asked for help with my elderly mother, and not judge her. So and just come from love. So I asked Jesus for help because she doesn't want me to send her anything. She did. So, but yet it's kind of one-sided. She can send me stuff from the Bible, but so I think of the teachings of the Course a lot, and taking Jesus's hand, and the most loving thing to do, because she is my mother, is to accept what she sends me, and I don't have to send her anything anymore. I just have to send her love, just I send her love, and I be kind to her. But it's kind of, you, especially with your parents or with children, there's control issues there, and there's also, issues. You're the child, so, and then they want to say that, people want to say that they're right in their belief system. So kindness is really, it's incredible. Just be always kind. If you can't think of anything else to say or do, it's just, be kind. Be kind. And that for me is to step back and ask for help with Jesus to help me look at this, take his hand, because then you're coming from love. And where it's said in here that the ego's, it's 100% thought system. It's hate and murder. So I don't want to come from that.
That is so beautiful. And thank you so much. Ken Wapnick says, if you come from kindness to all people, you don't even need the metaphysics of this course. Because basically, that's what love is. It's a kindness to all. Of course, the key word is all, not just a few. The metaphysics allows you to give it to all. But if you're already kind to all, you don't need the metaphysics. So thank you for sharing on that. Thanks, love.
Thank you, Deb. Ozzy has her hand, and then Karen.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, that was beautiful. Mickey? Michaela? Michaela.
Yeah, Mickey's my nickname, so
Mickey.
that's fine.
Okay. Yeah, really, I really enjoyed that when you were reading. And when you were talking about how everything was just flowing, and the morning and the theme and all that, I just had this thought. I was like, we could not have planned that better than if we had had meetings, all of us together, to determine how the program would roll out for the day. Like it was just beautiful. Just that example, it made me look back and be like, wow, we really don't do anything. Like we are just so chauvinistic. I am such a chauvinistic person, but I believe I am. And no judgment. I'm just in awe of it, thinking that I could even do anything. Like I'm a thought. So thank you so much. I just am absolutely grateful to be here. Beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you, Ozzy. Thank you. And Karen?
Yeah, thank you, Michale. Thank you, everyone. And Rev Wayne, I love what you shared about your dog. Oh my gosh, can't we all just be like that? That's like the perfect way, right? I loved some of Ken's quotes that he shared. I wrote one of them down and I really love is wisdom is not judgment, it is the relinquishment of judgment, you know? And you're right. This whole so far, Thankful Thursday seems like it's been on judgment and reminding us not to judge. And today's lesson, all things are echoes of the voice for God. The very first sentence is no one can judge on partial evidence. So it's always about, for me, you know, I can't judge because I don't know. The course is teaching me I don't know what anything is for. And that is why we give it over to the Holy Spirit. And that's what I keep hearing, you know. I used to judge my daughter. I don't even think about judging her anymore. I just can't. I don't even want to judge her anymore. There's the people that I used to judge. I look back on it and it was only a reflection of me still judging me. And I was pointing that onto her. I was projecting that onto her because I didn't want to deal with it in myself. So it made me look like the good mom, you know, or whatever. And so it's none of that anymore. And I'm so grateful for that. No judgment. Thank you. Great
Yeah.
message.
Beautiful, Karen. Thank you. Sharon, and then I think Dove, you wanted to say
Yeah,
something?
can you hear me? Because my computer wasn't working well, so I was on my phone a lot today to hear you. You know, judgment is,
Oh, now I can't hear you, Sharon.
You're muted, Sharon. Oh, I think we lost her.
No, she's there. See her. Sharon, we can't hear you. I don't hear her. Dove, did you want to say something? Because
I'll just say just a few words. I want to reiterate what Karen just said. You're always speaking about yourself. I mean, there's an old saying, if you spot it in others, you got it in yourself. And it may not be the exact same form, but it's a different form, but the same idea. Like maybe I see someone who is an alcoholic and I say, well, I don't drink alcohol. Yeah, but maybe I'm irresponsible in other ways. So you're always speaking about yourself. Like when I was in the schoolyard, kids used to say, it takes one to know one. Yeah, you're always speaking. Projection makes perception, means you're always speaking about yourself. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, projection makes perception. So it's a mirror. So it's reflecting back. So yeah. So I guess we'll go on. I don't see any other hands, and I don't think, Sharon, if you want to talk, please go ahead. But we can't hear you. So okay, so healing as the undoing of separation. I want to read a line from, oh, there she is. Are you back, Sharon?
yeah, well, what happened was my computer, the sound keeps coming off of, you know, not working. All I was going to say is I feel that the self-judgment, like what Dub was saying, we're always judging ourselves no matter who we're judging because there's no one else out there. However, sometimes I agree with the self-judgments of Sharon. And that's what I'm paying attention to because there's belief that I'm still Sharon. And when that comes up, I just look and judge it not, meaning you just watch it because the ego's on autopilot. And the only mistake I can make is to agree with it, right? Because if I say, oh, I feel bad because I'm only listening to a mind that doesn't know what I am. You know, if we're trying to make this world work, it's not going to. If we're trying to make, ourselves special, it's not going to work. We're not, all we are is this one sun dreaming. And if we take it and make it as simple as we can let go of all of it. That's all I have. Thanks.
That's very beautiful. Yeah.
Uh,
Thank you, Sharon.
Good one,
Okay.
Sharon.
So we'll read Healing as the Undoing of Separation. I want to read a line from the psychotherapy pamphlet in the section called The Definition of Healing. I make a point of reading it when I give a workshop on psychotherapy. It is a remarkable statement about healing in that it says absolutely nothing about the patient. Jesus has just stated that the final goal of psychotherapy is the realization that unforgiveness is the only problem, and therefore forgiveness is what heals. Then he asks how this goal is reached and answered. This is one more place where Jesus tells us in one sentence how his course is learned and what it takes to achieve its goal. And now he tells all therapists, which include all people, how they reach this final goal of forgiveness. Quote, the therapist sees in the patient all that he has not forgiven in himself and is thus given another chance to look at it, open it to reevaluation and forgive it, end quote. This is how psychotherapy heals, how a relationship heals, how a teacher of God heals. Notice again that Jesus says absolutely nothing about the patient. The therapist sees in the patient, quote, the therapist sees in the patient all that he has not forgiven in himself, end quote. And that's what you were just saying, Sharon, and Karen too. Implied in this, of course, is that because the therapist has asked Jesus for help, he has another chance to look at what was secretly buried in him, because he now is seeing it in someone else. Thus, becoming upset or bored with your patient, or concerned about a friend who is dying of cancer or AIDS, or who has just stubbed his toe, is a red flag signaling you that there is something unhealed in you, and that you now have another opportunity to reevaluate it and assess your values and priorities. Looking with the help of Jesus is what makes forgiveness possible. Nothing is said about judging the patient, making the patient feel guilty. Everything is said, though, about having the therapist healed. In fact, the entire pamphlet is about that, because once the therapist's mind is healed, he will allow the true healer to heal through him. So that's really important. I feel that once the therapist's mind is healed, he will allow the true healer to heal through him. That's really beautiful. The therapist's role is not to be brilliant in his judgment of someone else, any more than it is your part to be brilliant in analyzing why someone is sick or not getting better. Your job is simply to be aware that your concern about someone else is a projection of something unhealed in you. Once aware of that, you then have a meaningful basis for asking help of Jesus, not for help in looking at the other person differently, or for help so you would say the most loving thing, but for help to forgive yourself. At that point, then, everything you say will be loving and kind. As an illustration of these principles, I would like to refer to a discussion I had many years ago with a professional couple, David and Annie, who worked in a mental hospital. Our discussion came during my workshop on healing the unhealed healer. They wanted to review with me how they had been dealing with administrators in the hospital who they thought were making a serious mistake in their approach to patients. David and Annie felt it was part of their responsibilities to help correct this administrative situation. The goal of the administration was to make money, not to help people, which should come at no surprise to anyone. And that involved unspoken policies such as keeping patients in the hospital longer than needed because their insurance had not run out. That was a fairly common way for the hospitals to make money. Again, not a surprise. Clearly, on the level of form, this is not helpful. And just as clearly, on the level of form, David and Annie's attitude was an attempt to be helpful because their concern was to help their patients. There was one flaw, a serious one, in their argument, however, and that is what I would like to talk about. Again, on the surface, the form, they appeared to be doing the right thing. Yet beneath the surface, it became equally clear that something else was going on. They, in effect, wanted to kill the administration. That is a slight exaggeration, but the content is there, even if the form is muted. That incidentally is one of the signs of an unhealed healer, the belief that the form is important. So I want to repeat that. That incidentally is one of the signs of an unhealed healer, the belief that the form is important. David and Annie's mistake was in forgetting that the reason they were in the hospital was not to heal the patients that were referred to them. The reason they were working in the hospital was to heal the administration. They were just going about it in the wrong way. When viewed on the level of content, healing is joining. And Karen, that's what you had written in the chat. David and Annie had conceived of their work as joining with the patients, but as poor victims who desperately needed their help. These patients were not only victimized by their circumstances, they were also victimized by the hospital administrators who are now seen as the bad ones, as opposed to the good ones, namely David and Annie, and everyone else who cared about them. What David and Annie forgot, what we all forgot, is that our purpose is to join, but that the joining is never on the level of form, but only on the level of content. That means that we cannot join with one person or one group if we are allied against another. Joining with one in opposition to another is the perfect way of appearing to be engaged in healing, but doing the exact opposite. That is what the Song of Prayer pamphlet calls healing to separate. I am the healer, and I have something you do not have. I am seeing you and me as separate, but yet I am attempting to help you. In that sense, these healers ultimately believe they are gods, with the power and knowledge to dispense healing when and where they choose, forgetting that, quote, God does not know a separation. What he knows is only that he has one son, end quote. And each one in David and Annie's situation, administration, staff, patients, is part of the one Son of God. To exclude one is to exclude all, since God's Son cannot be divided and remain as God created him. Thus, David and Annie were attempting to heal by joining with the patient group. And they were separating themselves from the administration through their judgments. Sorry about that. Healing could not take place. What they did was to split their perception of the sonship into good versus bad. And it happened because they got caught in the trap, as we all do, of mistaking form for content. They felt that their job was to do what they were trained to do, which was to heal the mentally ill. But that is not the job Jesus assigned them. That is what they were paid to do by the world. But he wanted them to heal their minds of the belief in separation. Once that is accepted as your goal and only purpose and function, it is clear that if you are involved in a cause that is pitting you against someone else, where your point of view, which differs from another point of view, becomes paramount, all you are doing is continuing to split and separate. And that means you are doing the exact opposite of what you really want to be doing. Not only then can you not be an instrument of healing for the person outside you, you obviously cannot be healed yourself. This works with everyone, whether you are being paid as a mental health worker in one form or another, or you just see yourself as a helper of others. It works for whatever you are involved with. When you believe what is important is the task, which always implies that you know better than someone else, that is another clear sign that you are listening to the ego. Now, on some level, you may feel you know better. For instance, if someone you are with says 2 + 2 = 5, you will say, no, 2 + 2 = 4. There is a part of you that knows that you know that 2 + 2 = 4, but then you don't make it into a big deal. That is the issue. As I have said numerous times, A Course in Miracles is not teaching us to deny that there are differences. It is teaching us not to make the differences into a big deal. So you don't make it the differences into a big deal. I think that's really important. And it's almost time. I'm going to read the chat right now. See, Karen says, you're always speaking about yourself. And then Karen said, what you think about is a belief to be undone, which comes from workbook lesson 91. And then Karen says, you need do nothing. If you're doing something, stop thoughts, not with God, is deaf something. And then Dove says, healing is joying. So joying or joining. So that's really nice. So did you want me to stop here, or we're almost at 3, Lynn. Would you like me to continue on? I guess I'll continue on.
Yeah, that's entirely up to you.
Okay, well, we're almost there in my book. I've got about 2.5 pages. And so David and Annie clearly would say, and find countless others who would agree with them, no doubt that they are right, that the most loving thing to do is to discharge a patient who is ready to go home and not have their medical insurance be a factor. But they are wrong, because what they are really doing is separating themselves from the administration. In the section entitled The Correction of Error, Jesus says the Son of God is never wrong. His ego may be wrong, but our job is still to tell him he is right. Of course, that does not always mean on the level of form. It is not helpful to a third grade student to be told he is right in thinking 2 + 2 = 5. That is not going to help him function in the world. But there is a way of telling him 2 + 2 = 4 without also telling him that as a person he is wrong. You do not have to attack. Before you correct someone's error, you first want to be sure that your mind is joined with that person. So again, David and Annie's task was to join with the administration first. If they do not, they are not going to be of help to anyone in the hospital. They then would just continue to separate and separate and separate. The issue is not what David and Annie do, the level of form. The issue is that within themselves, the level of content, they not harbor grievances and side with one group against the other. Remember, anyone who is in this world is automatically wrong. And so to take sides is to say some groups are more wrong than others, that there is a hierarchy of illusions. To do that is to be wrong still again. We are all wrong in the same way, and we are all right in the same way. Therefore, if you become aware that you are looking to pick a fight, to polarize a situation, realize that you are doing this to keep yourself away from the love of God, and then ask yourself if this is really what you want. The answer is obvious. If you are serious about wanting to be joined with the love of God and to feel that peaceful presence, the only way that is possible is to join with the people you have made into the enemies. Be aware that you are pushing them away because that is a way of pushing God away, and you don't want to do that anymore. At that point, it would be much more difficult to justify being angry. What is really necessary is to totally rethink the purpose of your life. Whether you are working in a hospital or in General Motors does not matter. What is needed is a total rethinking, re-experiencing, and restructuring of why you are here. You are here simply to undo the thoughts of separation in your own mind and release your judgments. And the form does not matter. If you want to be of help, then you must experience a joining and not a sense of opposition. That is what is behind those very important lines in the text. Quote, "Trust not your good intentions. They are not enough." End quote. And that ends chapter 2 for this week. And we have Sharon's hand and Karen's hand, and I was reading from the book, so I don't know who goes first.
Well, Karen I was just going to ask you one question. You're going to do parents and children, and I thought that would be a great thing to do with, because there's a couple of us that have had them as our hardest classroom. So think about it, because I have the book, and maybe Karen has it, I don't know, but it's a good book for, don't you think, as a group to do it?
I
have that book.
I think it would be great. There's volume 2 on this book that I'd like
I
to
have
read.
that too. Yeah, I have them both. Yeah.
And then parents, the small book, Parents and Children, Our Most Difficult Classroom, which can also has a videotape and audio on that too. So, I mean, it is our most difficult.
It really is. And I thought that it would be good as a group. But you know what? Even so, I could always come. It's up to you. Anyway,
Yeah,
I just thought,
beautiful. Yeah.
Karen, it's your turn.
Karen, go on.
Did she
I'm
get off?
sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Kaylee. I said, I got the book. I got the book. I know. What I wanted to share was when you were sharing about the joining, healing is joining, and you were joining with your mom. That was healing what you did with your mom. That made me think about you and your mom and how, she didn't want you to send her anything. So, instead of getting like an attitude or like whatever, you just accepted that. Because some people can. I'm not saying you would. I'm just saying that it could have went that way. You just accepted it, that that's true joining, and it's healing the mind from the belief in separation. So you, instead of thinking that what you had was something that you thought would help her, she didn't need anything. It was perfect. It's so perfect. And just allowing people to be, that's true joining, And so I just want to say that the experience that you shared with your mom was true joining, and it was a beautiful example.
Thank you, Karen. It is a difficult classroom, because especially, as your parents get older, there's still a control issue, and so they kind of want you to believe what they believe, and so it's difficult, because it doesn't matter how old you are, you're still their child. So, and I myself have children, so it makes me really take a look at myself too, and that I be very accepting and loving and kind to my own children, come from that joining of what chapter 2 was talking about, and what you're talking about, Dove and Sharon and all of you, and Lynn, everybody on here, Ozzy, about, and Rev Wayne, about the joining. So yeah, it makes me really look at myself. But what I had sent my mom was she had I sent her a beautiful quote from somebody that Al-Anon had quoted from, and she thought it was from the Course in Miracles, and so she came back with an attack. So it was okay. It was all okay. So yeah, and she can send me all sorts of things, but she doesn't want me to send her anything. So it's kind of one-sided. So the best thing is for me to join with her and be loving and kind and accepting, because it's perfect just the way it is. So it's fine.
There's
Rev Wayne has his
Yeah,
hand.
Yeah,
I think you wanted to say something.
a quick thing. You had mentioned it earlier, something about the information. You said people are not wrong. I think he said that this 2 plus 2 is 4, not 5. And if you say 4, if you say 5, it's no big deal, basically. The person's not wrong, even if you get the wrong answer. I thought it was very important, because the exploration is that the information is not who you are. It's not, the information that is out there for anyone to have. It's not like it's your information. And the information 1 plus 1 is 2 is out there, whether or not you accept that it's true or not. So if I see 1 plus 1 is 2, then I've decided to identify with that information. But it's not who I am. So if someone says you're wrong, what they're really saying is that you have decided that that particular piece of information is wrong. It doesn't mean that you're bad. It means that the information is not working for you. So if I say 1 plus 1 is 5, I'm going to have some problems. But it doesn't mean I'm bad or wrong. It just means I've decided wrong. There's a big difference, because people walk around thinking that if I say someone's wrong, they think I'm telling them that they're bad, or they're wrong, or they're no good, and it really offensive. All I'm saying is that the choice they have made for that particular choice that they want to do something is not working for them. They're right. They're always right. They're always good. They're just doing their best. It's the information that is not who they are that belongs to everybody. So I just thought that was kind of cool. That's all.
Thank you. It's beautiful. Sharon, did you want to say something?
Oh, it's funny. I'm on 2 things because I like the computer to look at, and then I'm on my phone. Now, I was just going to say that, in the months to come, we could do the other thing. And what Wayne said is true. It's always, it's always important to meet everybody where they are, right? Because we're only seeing our own mind. So suppose somebody doesn't understand what we're doing, and most people don't, then we just listen to them. There's nothing to preach anymore. I know I took this path to a point where I was telling people in my family how, oh, this is wonderful. You know, that and the 12 steps. I did that too. And both of which was, it doesn't work. It doesn't. And it's the ego that's doing it, right? The ego is the one that, listen, I'll convert you also, then I'll know nothing's real. When in fact, you're just my projection, and so is Sharon. You see, that's how silly this whole thing is. But, you know, again, if we can laugh at it and not take ourselves seriously, we can have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Because what I did a lot in my life was take myself, well, we all did. If you're in the ego, you're serious. That's for sure. You know,
Yeah.
there's nothing here that's really serious. I mean, think what we're doing is we're looking at our projections. Like your mom is a projection, and so is Mickey a projection in your mind, just as you are in my mind. So it's all about looking at just the fact that we think we're here, and the thinking mind believes it. But the part of us that knows that is simply not true is expanding, because that's the part that won't fall away. The ego just dissolves, I guess, you know. That's all.
That's really nice. Yeah, I mean, Ken talks about that too, about always, you know, oh boy, there goes my ego again. You just laugh at it, you know, you just laugh at
Oh,
it.
absolutely. Because I think people really think, well, let me speak from my own point of view. I think I thought at one point that it would disappear, and I don't see it disappearing, but what I do see is it's cooperative now. It's actually cooperative. It actually does yield, you know. So when like Karen was saying that the first thought is the ego, and that is true, but what's going on now in this mind is that there's a pause. There's a natural pause. If I'm not mindful, I will fall back into it, you know, whatever the ego is saying. But for the most part, the pause is there. And if you just pause, you can pause for inspiration and get and most of the time it's nothing. You don't need to say anything. You know, our
Yeah.
egos are so frantic. So
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you for that today.
Thank you for your sharing right now, especially saying that it will yield, you know, there is a pause. So that's really true. I mean, that was the very first tape that got me, because I was a student of Krishnamurti before Tara Singh, and the first tape that I got of his that attracted me was, "Is it possible to rest the brain?" And it's what you're talking about, Sharon, that pausing. It will yield.
Well, the steps, I mean, the lessons do that. You know,
Yeah.
as we get deeper into the lessons, you know, this is a methodical teaching. Jesus took this teaching and knows exactly how to unwind this. And if we just follow you know, all his directions, we pretty much will quiet our minds. Whether or not the ego goes away, I don't know. That's not my experience yet. So, you know, my experience is still blabbing. Karen is like looking to, where's Karen go? Karen, did you put your hand down? There's up again.
I just want to say, Sharon, I love you. I just love you. I do. You're the best. And I also just want to say, I don't know who Kairos is, but I just love the sharing, whatever. And then
Oh,
in the
Kairos,
chat,
I don't know Kairos, but
I love I love the chats that Kairos is writing. I don't know who you are, but I love your chats. I just want to say
Sharon,
that.
you know Kiros. He's joyfully his in Pal Talk. He's been with us for years. He just
what's
was
his
gone for a
name?
couple years and just came back.
What's his name?
Kiros
Kira-
Maluta. And
So I
it's
must have known him years ago, but you know, I'm getting old, so sorry.
joyfully his. So yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I'm grateful for him being here.
Yeah, I love when the old people come back. Yeah, because I think it's so funny, you know, because it's so like I missed this so much. This is the best, Lynn. I really love it. And sometimes I just listen on my phone because my computer, well, whatever the case may be, there's no problem having two Sharons, right? Because I'm not even here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
All
all.
right, you guys.
Thanks,
Thank you all so
Michele. Thanks,
much.
Good
everyone.
night.
Thanks,
All right.
Mickey. We'll see you
Thank you.
tonight.
See you
Okay,
night,
see you.
Mickey. See you night, everybody. Bye, love.
Bye-bye.
Bye.